If you're watching this, it's probably because you're thinking about buying an X series camera from Fujifilm, or you've recently bought an X-T3 and you're looking to decide whether you've got buyer's remorse or you're wanting to get some confirmation that you're really smart and you've bought a great camera. Good morning everybody, it's really great to see you. Thanks for looking in. I bought the X-T3 6 months ago, and in this video I'm going to explain why I moved over from Canon full frame. It's a great camera which I use for most of my photography work now, and I'm going to tell you why I'm using it particularly with regards to travel photography and landscape photography. So before we get into it, first off, a little bit about me as a photographer. I do a range of photography work. I have a portfolio with some weddings, some studio portfolios, some headshots, and some commercial work. All of that, which is I've mainly kept the Canon camera that I'm using, but I also do theatre work. I take band photos, and my two great loves are travel photography and landscape photography. And for both of those, and also for the gig work, I'm really transitioned pretty much exclusively into using the Fujifilm. I'm not a guy that greatly suffers from gear acquisition syndrome, so I don't buy loads of cameras. So when I make a purchase, it's a pretty big thing for me. My first camera was a Pentax MX, which I think I got in 1980. Film camera, great single lens reflex camera. It was stolen 3 years later. My next camera was a Canon Rebel 350D, which I bought in 2006. And then in 2012, I bought a Canon 5D Mark II, which I've been using as my workhorse camera since then, and particularly when I started getting into professional work and doing photography more seriously. And then let me check the date, in 2016 I was really attracted to the Fujifilm X Pro 1, and I got that. And then in January of 2020 I bought the X-T3, and last week I also bought an X-T20, which is a second-hand camera. So, doing some maths, in my time since 1980 buying my first camera, I bought a camera once every 6.667 recurring years. So not great in terms of buying new cameras. But if you're a little bit more looking at the more recent times, I seem to have bought a camera once every year and a half. But I am not going to make a habit of it. I really like the Fuji X-T3, and I'm going to tell you why. So what made me change? Well, in my day job, I travel all over the world, and I have to carry, obviously, my work gear. And I was going to some fantastic locations, and I wanted to bring good quality camera with me. And the Canon is that, but the problem is it's so heavy, it really took a lot of weight additional to the other things that I was bringing. So that was a problem. And also, when you start bringing out a full frame camera, it attracts attention. If you're trying to take subtle pictures in markets or souks, or trying to take pictures of people, having a full frame camera is really a bit of a bind. You can't really do that too easily. And also, it was so heavy, and particularly in hot places, I really found it quite a challenge to be bringing it out. So weight was the first issue. I really wanted a lightweight, fully functioning camera that didn't compromise on quality. And as I said, I bought a X Pro 1 a few years ago, really as a lightweight travel camera, and I loved it for its weight and that you could get really great pictures out of it. But I had some problems with it. It's a rangefinder camera and I didn't really get on with the rangefinder thing. I'm sorry, I'm not very cool. I know it's a very cool thing, but I just didn't really get on with the parallax thing. So the other issue with the X Pro 1 is its autofocus was very slow, and so trying to take surreptitious pictures of when we were sort of having family get-togethers was very difficult because the autofocus was too slow. In terms of landscape photography, again, the Canon was so heavy it really stopped me taking it out. So if I was going out for a hike, and I love hiking, I would choose not to bring it with me because it meant that I had to pack up the camera, all the filters and the paraphernalia and bring a tripod. And all of that was really too much to be bringing out on a day hike because I just didn't enjoy the hiking as much because the weight that I was carrying. So again, I was still looking for a lighter weight version where I didn't have to compromise on quality. And I'd invested an awful lot on the leaf filter system, and I didn't really want to sort of ditch that and then start again. And I found out that apparently you can get step down, step up rings which adjust to different lens sizes. So all of a sudden it became obvious that I could invest in a Fujifilm X-T3 and that was going to be able to let me bring my filters along. I'd also invested in a few prime lenses for my X Pro 1, so I have a nifty 50 equivalent of a 35mm and an 18mm wide angled lens which I was using in combination, so that both very small lightweight lenses, but particularly the 35 was quite expensive and I wanted to be able to port that over onto any new camera system. So that's why I looked at moving over to the X-T3. A lightweight camera, it has eye autofocus, face autofocus, which had great reviews, which meant that for family events and that I could capture people without bringing out a big old camera that was going to attract a lot of attention. And of course, when people see a big camera, they tend to sort of close up their personalities a little bit and it's harder to get nice pictures. So that's why I invested in the X-T3. So after 6 months, what have I found about using the Fuji X-T3? I don't have any buyer's remorse. Firstly, it is light and I love that. It's fully functioning. I can go from full manual through aperture or shutter priority through to full auto without any great change in use, and I know how to use it. It's a very intuitive camera to use. The quality is great. I was really worried about going down from full frame to a crop sensor, but the image files are so large, there is so much detail in it, I really don't see any image quality issues with the camera, and there's lots of technical analyses on YouTube which you can go and look at. But for me, it's fantastic. You can print these pictures really large and the quality is great. One of the advantages of it being lightweight is I now bring the camera everywhere. It's never a problem for me to be bringing it out, so I'm using it far more. I'm doing far more photography than I did 6 months ago. And in terms of landscape photography, I'm much happier to bring out my kit now. Some time ago I used to think I'm a hiker that takes some pictures. Now I think I'm a photographer who happens to go hiking. And there's a subtle and important difference with that. And that's because I'm really bringing all of my kit to make sure that I can take really great pictures when I'm hiking. I'm currently working through the Southwest Coast path down in Cornwall, and I'm loving being able to bring the camera kit out and make sure that I'm getting the best pictures that I can when I'm out walking. The next great reason is something that I wasn't expecting, and if you'll indulge me in an analogy. I used to have a Mini, and it was great. I loved it. Bright red, It had a RAF roundel on its roof, and I drove it everywhere. I loved that car, and I drove it to bits. It was absolutely brilliant. And when I sold it, I absolutely cried and cried about losing this car that I had loved so much. And I bought a Ford Fiesta, and I was sort of disappointed about getting into this car after the fun that I'd had in the Mini. And then I started finding out that there is, in the 10 years that I'd had the Mini, a whole bunch of new facilities and technologies that had been introduced into car production. So now I could listen to my phone without plugging it in anywhere through the car radio. It meant that I had a sat-nav whenever I was going anywhere. I could use lots of new features in the car that I wasn't expecting, and I didn't buy the car for that reason. And that's exactly the same as I'm finding with the Fujifilm. The autofocus is so good. The peak focus assist is something that the Canon didn't have, and I love it. It really helps me to make sure that pictures, particularly landscape pictures, are absolutely crisply sharp. A couple of the other things that I've been surprised about with the X-T3 that have been really unexpected benefits. I occasionally use the touchscreen focus on the back of the camera to pick a particular focal point. The electronic viewfinder is absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love it. It wasn't something that I was expecting to do, but the EVF is really brilliant on this camera. The articulating screen is something that the 5D doesn't have, and it's really great. I like it very much indeed, particularly when I'm shooting in portrait orientation. And then the last thing is really about being able to record RAW files and JPEG simultaneously. The camera's got 2 slots, and I can set it up so that I record one picture in RAW to one memory card and a JPEG facsimile to the other card. And combining that with the Fuji camera app on my phone, I can import the JPEG version of the picture, edit it directly on my phone using something like Snapseed, and upload it to social media straight away. It's really a great way of being able to keep people on your social media aware of where you're shooting on a particular day. Of course, you've still got the RAW file that you can fully edit once you get back to the studio. So the new features that the X-T3 has compared to the Canon 5D Mark II was a real revelation for me, and I'm really it's been a real surprise for me. The third great reason is because it makes taking pictures fun again. I just love using it. It's so intuitive. I love the dial. Everything is set out on dials, and it just makes sort of photography pleasurable. And the last thing that I'm going to say, which is a surprise to me, although when I wrote my reasons for buying this camera was a throwaway line at the end, which was I might use it for a bit of video. Well, jump forward 6 months, I'm doing these YouTube videos, which I wouldn't have been doing had I still only been using the Canon. The Canon's video facilities are not great, but actually trying to set the camera up to do video, I just didn't make any sense. Whereas the Fuji, you just flip a switch, everything's set up, and you're rolling. So those are the reasons why I bought the X-T3. These are the reasons why I think if you buy one, you'll love it. Now, of course, the X-T4 is out, and the reason I bought the X-T3 is that there was rumours that the X-T4 was going to come out, and so there was a big price drop. And I'm really pleased that I did that. Yeah, I would like the in-body stabilisation that the X-T4 has, but I'm going to wait a few years before I invest in my next camera. Thanks very much indeed for watching. If you've got this far, I really appreciate it. Have a look at subscribing and maybe hitting the bell, and you can see some more pictures. The next video is probably more about the photographs I've taken since I've been here in Cornwall. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again.